As pop legend Madonna once said, Italians do it better. At least they used to anyway. After Brazil and Germany, Italy are the most successful national team in footballing history, 4 World Cups and 2 European Championships. But after their glorious victory at Euro 2020, Italy failed to qualify for a second successive World Cup. It was a national tragedy. We chart the rise and fall of the Azzurri Empire. Italy first emerged as a footballing superpower during the 1930s. This was during the height of Italy's fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. Under legendary coach Vittorio Pozzo, the Azzurri hosted and won the World Cup in 1934 against Czechoslovakia, before retaining it 4 years later in Paris against Hungary. In between, they won the Olympics. The superstar of this Italy glory team was Giuseppe Meazza. Meazza was a notorious smoker and playboy who would spend the nights before games sleeping at a brothel. Thanks to Meazza, who famously had to pull his shorts up as they fell down when scoring a penalty in the semi-finals against favourites Brazil, and also the goals of Silvio Piola, who remains to this day the highest scorer in Serie A history, Italy won the 1938 final against Hungary. Italy's dominance was halted by tragedy. First, there was the Second World War, and then a plane crash in 1949 which wiped out the entire Il Grande Torino team. By the 1960s, Italy had perfected a new form of ultra-defensive football known as catenaccio. Despite a humiliating group stage exit to North Korea in the 1966 World Cup, after which players were pelted with rotten fruit by angry fans, Italy would host and win Euro 1968. The success was built on defensive legends like Facchetti, Bergnic and goalkeeper Dino Zoff. Also world-class attackers like Gigi Riva, whose shot was so powerful it once broke the arm of a supporter in the crowd, and Sandro Mazzola, whose father Valentino died in that plane crash. Italy beat Yugoslavia in a replayed final, but only after they defeated the Soviet Union in the semis thanks to a coin toss won by Facchetti. 2 years later, Italy went so close to completing a Euro and World Cup double in Mexico. In the semis, they beat West Germany 4-3 after extra time in the game of the century, Jenny Rivera scoring the winner in an epic game in which Franz Beckenbauer played with a dislocated arm in a sling. In the final itself, an exhausted Italy lost 4-1 to a Pelé-inspired Brazil. The 1970s was a dismal period for Italian clubs, but by the end of the decade, powered by a dominant Juventus side coached by Giovanni Trapattoni, a brilliant young generation of Italian players emerged. Hardman Claudio Gentile, who once tore Brazilian great Zico's shirt in half during a game, elegant libero Gaetano Sciarra, and flying fullback Antonio Cabrini. There was midfielder Marco Tardelli and goal machine Paolo Rossi, as well as Fiorentina playmaker Giancarlo Antonioni. An exciting Italy side lit up the World Cup in Argentina, even beating the hosts and eventual winners in the groups thanks to a Roberto Bettega goal. Argentina's brutal military dictatorship did not like that. Italy narrowly missed out on a place in the final thanks to 2 miraculous long-range goals in a 2-1 defeat to Holland. The Azzurri eventually finished 4th, but they had showed everyone that they were ready to conquer the world very soon. And Italy did indeed conquer the world 4 years later in Spain. Things started badly and Italy was slaughtered by their media after drawing their first 3 group games. They were given no hope of getting through their second round group featuring champions Argentina and favourites Brazil. But press silence galvanised the squad, who beat Argentina 2-1 with Claudio Gentile kicking lumps out of a young Diego Maradona. Then a certain Paolo Rossi, who had been out of the game for 2 years on match-fixing charges, made the World Cup his own. He scored a stunning hat-trick to defeat a seemingly unbeatable Brazil 3-2 in one of the greatest World Cup matches in history. He scored 2 more in the semis against Poland and opened the scoring in the final as Italy beat West Germany 3-1 in Madrid. The iconic image of Marco Tardelli celebrating the Azzurri's second goal will live long in the memory, as will the image of Italy's 86-year-old president Sandro Pertini, wiggling his hands to the Spanish king Juan Carlos I as if to say that Germans can't catch them now. On the plane back to Italy, Pertini, pipe-smoking manager Enzo Bearzot, 40-year-old goalkeeper Dino Zoff and Franco Calzio sat down together with the World Cup on the table and played Scorba, an Italian card game. Italy were world champions again after 44 years. After Italy failed to qualify for Euro 84 and were knocked out in the second round of the 1986 World Cup by Michel Platini's France, a brilliant new young generation emerged for Euro 88. This included a number of stars from Arrigo Sacchi's all-conquering AC Milan team, Baresi, Maldini, Donadoni, Ancelotti, as well as the Interisti of Zenga, Bergomi and Ferri. An exciting Italy side made it to the semi-finals. 2 years later, on home soil, to the mythical anthem of Pavarotti's Nessun Dorma, Italy were favourites to win the World Cup, and they strolled through the early rounds. Now they had two newcomers that lit up the finals, Toto Schillaci, the little Sicilian who finished top scorer, and a young Roberto Baggio, who scored one of the greatest World Cup goals ever against Czechoslovakia, dribbling past defender after defender before slotting home. Italy's defence seemed unbreachable, and they didn't concede a goal until the semi-finals, when a disastrous mistake by Zenga allowed Claudio Caniggia to equalise for Argentina. Heartbreakingly, Italy would lose this game on Naples on penalties to a brutally negative Argentina side. Diego Maradona proved to be the villain, urging his beloved Neapolitan fans to cheer against their own nation. It was Maradona who scored the decisive penalty in the shootout. The 1990s were a golden generation for Italian football, for both club sides and for the Azzurri. All the world's best players played in Italy, and Serie A clubs utterly dominated Europe, winning trophy after trophy. Italy produced a golden generation of defenders, with the likes of Baresi, Maldini, Costacurta, Bergomi, Ferrara, Cannavaro and Nesta, but they also produced a golden generation of attackers. In addition to Baggio, there was Vialli, Mancini, Zola, Signori, Del Piero, Chiesa, Ravanelli, Totti, Inzaghi, Vieri, the list goes on and on. At the 1994 World Cup, Italy went so close to winning the title. The ponytailed Baggio was Italy's saviour throughout, scoring crucial late goals against Nigeria and Spain and a brilliant double in the semis versus Bulgaria. But he went into the final injured, and in iconic fashion, he missed Italy's last penalty in the shootout defeat to Brazil. 4 years later, penalties again proved Italy's downfall, as Luigi Di Biagio smashed his spot kick against the bar in a quarter-final defeat to hosts and eventual winners France. The gods were not with Italy throughout this golden generation, and at Euro 2000, another brilliant Italy team were again denied in the cruelest fashion. In the semis, Cannavaro, Nesta, Maldini and goalkeeper Francesco Toldo had produced one of the greatest displays of defending in football history, playing most of the game and extra time with 10 men to beat Netherlands on penalties. Toldo was unbeatable, as the Dutch missed an incredible 5 penalties against him. Italy played an almost perfect final against France, taking a lead after a genius back heel from Italy's new number 10 Totti allowed Pesotto to cross for Del Vecchio to score. Del Piero became the villain as he missed 2 easy chances to finish off the game, and then 4 minutes into stoppage time, with Italians lining up on the touchline ready to celebrate, Sylvain Wiltord equalised out of nothing to take the game to extra time. David Trezeguet would break Italian hearts with the golden goal winner. Italy were then cheated out of the 2002 World Cup. They had 5 valid goals disallowed in 3 matches and were eliminated in the last 16 against co-host South Korea by the infamous Ecuadorian referee Byron Moreno. Moreno sent off Totti and disallowed a perfectly fine Italy golden goal. He would later go to prison for smuggling heroin into New York. The luck changed in 2006 as Italy won their first World Cup in 24 years under manager Marcello Lippi. Italy's success was built around a fantastic defence, led by both Ballon d'Or winning captain Cannavaro and goalkeeping icon Gianluigi Buffon. The Azzurri conceded just 2 goals all tournament, an own goal and a penalty. They defeated host Germany in an epic semi-final in Dortmund. Fabio Grosso gave us one of the most iconic World Cup celebrations by breaking the deadlock in the 119th minute, with Del Piero adding a second seconds later. The final itself is best remembered for Zinedine Zidane getting sent off in the final game of his career, for headbutting Italy's goalscorer Marco Materazzi in the chest. The Azzurri won 5-3 on penalties, with Grosso striking home the winning penalty. Campioni del Mondo. The World Cup's success was not the beginning of an Italian dynasty. Instead, it signalled the start of a dark era. In the summer of 2006, the Calciopoli scandal rocked Italian football. Italy's biggest club Juventus was demoted and Serie A was crippled commercially. It has never recovered. Milan won the Champions League in 2007 and Inter in 2010, but since then Serie A the Premier League is so rich that Serie A teams simply can't compete in the transfer market like they did during the 80s and 90s. The best players in the world no longer play in Serie A. There is a desperate need for new stadiums, while tactically Italy was slow to modernise too. Historically, Italian teams built their success on a strong defence and being smart, but modern football has changed. Attacking, possession and pressing has superseded defending and counter-attacking. It took a long time for Italian teams to catch up in this sense, and still there is resistance from some high-profile figures such as Max Allegri, who has been labelled a dinosaur for his insistence on defensive football. In terms of youth production, the well is drier. Back in the 80s and 90s, Italy produced wonder kid after wonder kid, the likes of Maldini, Baggio, Totti and Buffon. Most youth teams today are dominated by foreigners, while there are few opportunities for youngsters in Serie A. Those running the Italian game are more interested in holding on to power than reforming. And when it comes to marketing their league, well, Italians couldn't even sell a life jacket on the Titanic there. As a result of all this, Italy's national team since 2006 has often disappointed. At the Euros, the Azzurri have performed well. They reached the quarterfinals in 2008 and 2016, only losing on penalties both times. They were beaten finalists in Euro 2012, and at Euro 2020, Roberto Mancini led Italy to their first European Championship in 53 years. That Euro 2020 victory saw Italy play modern football, pressing and dominating possession through elite midfielders like Marco Verratti and Jorginho, ably supported by legendary defenders Giorgio Chiellini and Leonardo Bonucci, a monstrous goalkeeper in Gigi Donnarumma and electric winger Federico Chiesa. Beating host England in the final was a glorious moment for the Azzurri. But that Euros victory proved to be only a brief interlude in Italy's decline. Just 7 months after winning the Euros, Italy failed to qualify for the World Cup after a humiliating defeat at home to North Macedonia. This was the second World Cup in a row that Italy failed to qualify for. At the 2010 and 2014 World Cups, Italy didn't even get out of their groups. This means that since the 2006 World Cup success, the Azzurri have only won one game at the World Cup. For a nation that is only second to Brazil in World Cups won, it has been some fall for Italy.